Hi, good morning. Testing mic.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good morning to the 100 or so people who registered today. Thank you for taking time out from your busy schedules to join us. We're going to have a short information session, which is going to be delivered by me, Zachary Malik, my colleague Bawani, and also Mr. Hidayat. So the three of us will be taking you through certain items regarding the content, regarding how to submit good proposals, and also how to use the new system for applications. Next slide. Next slide. So basically, a little bit about MCMC, just to give you a feel of what we're doing. We were set up in November 1998 with a staff of about 3 people. And in the following year, in April, 1st of April 1999, our powers came into force. And from that period onwards, we were the regulator for the converged licensing regime. Prior to MCMC, licensing was actually distributed amongst different regulatory bodies. So we had Jabatan Telekom Malaysia, Kawal Selia arm. We also had the Ministry of Information licensing arm. So those different departments were issuing telecommunications licenses. They were issuing broadcasting licenses. When MCMC came about, the broadcasting licenses and the telecommunication licenses ceased being used, and they were changed into what was called a convergence licensing regime. So we had content application service provision, we had application service providers, we had national network services providers, and network facilities providers. So these sort of licenses were technology neutral and were actually horizontally sort of integrated. So what this allowed for was more liberalization in terms of entry into the telecommunications and multimedia sort of sector. So those are the powers that you see. You see 4X. So those are our principal powers. So unlike other regulators, which might actually be relying on one act to actually situate where the powers are at, our powers are actually in these 4X, the Communications and Multimedia Act, the Digital Signatures Act, the Postal Services Act, and also the Strategic Trade Act. The next box here, you can see our role is a bit different from other countries, right? If you go to other countries, you have a regulator being just a regulator. So they're just involved with compliance issues. For Malaysia, we are both the regulator and we also develop industry to ensure that industry is sound, it is actually delivering on the national objectives which a country has. So in Malaysia, under Section 3 of the CMA, we have 10 national policy objectives, and this guides our developmental goals. And these 10 are to build a global hub, to build a civil society, to nurture local content and culture, to ensure users' long-term benefits, nurturing of user confidence, promoting access and equality, creating robust applications environments, facilitating efficient allocation of resources, developing industry capabilities, and promoting safe and secure networking. So when these items are not fleshed out in any of the acts, the minister and MCMC also has powers to create subsidiary legislation to actually build up legislation to actually achieve these 10 national policy objectives. I've also put a star with regard to certain things that we do. So if you see there, you'll see things like licensing, things like universal service provision, things like infrastructure. So if you see a star, it is something that is actually reflected in this year's research cycle. So we have 13 subjects or 13 research topics, and somehow those 13 research topics actually touch on those areas which we have a star. So basically, your research that you will participate in actually fits back into the loop in terms of how we do things, in terms of our improvement, in terms of understanding an area which we don't have good understanding in. The next box at the bottom is actually the 5 fora, which are actually which are actually designated forums in for the communications and multimedia industry. So these fora are actually promoting this concept of self-regulation. So the members can be members of industry, can be academia, can be NGOs, for example, consumer bodies, and they are actually responsible for creating some other legislation, not just MCMC. So whereas part of the legislation will come from MCMC, we are also hoping that in the long run, a lot of the regulations are things which are derived from the industry themselves. Next slide, please. So again, just now you saw there was a flag there, which was a red star, which had the things there. So basically, our job also is not just doing something for our own purpose. Basically, we are supporting national aspirations, and the national aspirations that we are most closely linked are with the My Digital and the 4IR. So, for example, for these two, we are working for the digital infrastructure and data cluster for the National 4IR and Digital Economy Council. And that is actually led by our ministry. For the 12th Malaysian Plan and the 2023 budget, again, we continue to support fiberization and coverage targets, things like Jendela, implementation of 5G, and internet access for people's housing project schemes. Next slide, please. So a little bit about the DSRG. Our research is not so big. As you notice, the research is 10,000 ringgit in 6 months. So basically, the program supports smaller scale applied social studies research intended to provide research insights in areas critical to MCMC. So for the 13 research areas, they're all guided research. They're things which are of critical requirement for us to understand. It is things which our internal departments which actually come up with the research punya requirements, and we develop it for the call for proposals. So again, that is a little bit about how our research is actually run. Next slide, please. So there are three groups which constitute the framework. So from MCMC, we have both the research sponsor and the secretariat. The research sponsor, again, is the impetus for the research. So whereas we have a framework, which is on the one hand, cyber wellness and digital citizenship, and on the other hand, digital inclusion. But under those things, we have boxes. So, for example, they might want to learn to communicate an idea better, or they want to actually learn how to look at the impact of a program, or they want to actually do something which actually addresses consumers of interest and protection. So those are the things which the research sponsor comes up with. And the secretariat is the one that once they have given us the request, we firm it up, and then it becomes part of the document that you see on the internet now, the guideline. And also we are the ones who manage the research from end to end. But the research sponsor is the critical person in terms of what, if you have any questions regarding content and stuff like that, it's actually the research sponsor. So if you look at closely at the guideline, you see all the contact details. For the second group is basically the institutes of higher learning. So this actually includes both private and public universities. And with the university is where we park the funds. And basically, in order for us to park the fund with the university, the lead researcher must be attached to that university in question. And the lead researcher must be a PhD. If you do not have a PhD, you can actually participate, but not as a lead researcher, but maybe as a team member. Again, the third bit of the picture is basically the technical panel. We make sure that the people who determine who gets the grant are people who understand about research and who understand about the subjects that we're looking at. So they might be members of academia, or they might be someone from industry, but the comfort is actually these are very senior personnel, professors with very long service with universities. And also for the MCMC perspective, it is the technical panel is actually led by a chief officer from MCMC. Next slide, please. Our research actually fits into our information requirements, so in our loop. But again, even though it is actually intended for MCMC, we want the information to be open to all. And we disseminate the findings via these three different channels. So we have Media Matters, which actually has a more summarized or abridged version of the research. Research Symposium, which actually gets all the researchers together and actually contextualizes the research in terms of the bigger thematic elements in terms of what the research achieved. And a Communicate at MCMC is a standalone session whereby we might select one researcher to actually give a little bit more detailed sort of dive in terms of sharing with members of the public about what the research is and what are the big issues which are surrounding that particular research. So typically with that, we have the researcher and also we have personnel from MCMC become a panel member in terms of addressing an issue or sharing whatever concerns that we have and what the research outputs and outcomes which are derived from the DSRG program. Next slide, please. So again, here we are about to introduce you to the 13 research projects. So the first research project is basically about environmental and social governance. And that is also an area which is important in terms of the 2023 budget. And our officers who are actually the content specialists, where if you have any queries, you can find the contact details in the guideline. Puan Hasria Zahidi and Puan Zeti Suhaida Zainuddin. So any questions that you might have about content, please contact them. You can copy to us at the Secretariat. For DCC2, it is about last mile safety of postal and courier deliveries. And the person who is the contact person, there are two. We have Encik Muhammad Farouk Yaakob and Encik Muhammad Haikal bin Azman. Next slide, please. Again, if you want to learn more about the research, please open the guidelines, yeah, because the guidelines tell you in a very summarized form what is the research rationale, what is the reason why we're doing it, what does the research intend to achieve, and what are the research objectives. So for us, we always determine what the research outcomes are. But for the researcher, you are the guys who actually, or the guys and girls who actually determine how the research is run, what sort of methodology that you would like to adopt, what sort of theoretical underpinnings which actually glue your research together, and what sort of research questions are actually spun off those particular research objectives that we might have. So again, this is where we are reliant on the academic community to actually give sort of a shape to our research request. So we are not researchers, and we are actually relying on the academic fraternity to actually come up with the best solutions in terms of how to achieve what we want to answer. Next slide, slide 9, yeah. So for DCC3, the officer is Muhammad Amir Shafiq Abdul Halim. And basically, this is actually looking at internal data sharing in terms of moving towards digitalization and how to do it better, and what corporates should actually be doing to actually add value in terms of what they do. I have 5 minutes left, so I'll speed up a little bit. I've got 3 slides. DH1, next one, we have Encik Vignesh Puvanaswaran. So we've had people asking about digitalization in other sectors. No, we actually are very interested in what is happening with the Malaysian agricultural sector. So again, please tailor your proposals to actually answer questions with regard to the agriculture sector only. For DI2A and 2B, it's basically the same research, but in two different areas. So one is actually covering Kelantan, Terengganu, and a little bit of Pahang, and the other one is in Sarawak. So the officer is actually the head of department, Puan Shahaliza Muhammad Saman. Again, this is something which we continue to be interested in. So we've had in the past research in Sabah, in Sarawak, and so on, and some in Semenanjung also. But there have been slight differences in terms of what is it that's being studied. Next slide. This is interesting. Internationally, there's work which is being done to look at 6G deployments. So even though we are very early in terms of 5G, but again, we want to know what would the requirements be in terms of having 6G in Malaysia. And this is something which is of interest for the long-term planning for moving towards 6G in the future. Next one is DI4. And again, Jendela is something which, inshallah, a lot of you are aware of. It's about coverage, it's about 5G, it's about lots of different things. And basically, we want to know, it's actually halfway through the process. Jendela is a long-term project and we are halfway done, but we want to actually have an initial sort of picture in terms of how we're doing with Jendela. So the officer is Puan Noazwa Abdurrani. Slide 12. This is interesting also. IPv6 is actually already deployed, but together with IPv4. So we want to actually consider what will happen or what needs to happen for us to move fully towards IPv6 networks. So the officers are Encik Muhammad Afiq Ahmad Tulus and Puan Melissa Kamal Zaman. DI6 is actually about priority assistance code, and this is also interesting. It's about having a higher degree of service delivery, service recovery for special categories of users, for example, who actually are very reliant on services not being disrupted. The officer is Puan Nishanti Taruna Vietnam from the Communication and Postal Regulation Department. Slide 13, we're almost done, the last of two that I'm presenting. So we have a comparative analysis of adoption of 5G technologies for digitalization by foreign countries, industry verticals. So basically we're anticipating desktop research and also maybe interview by phone sort of research, or maybe even researchers where you've got multinationals who are in Malaysia who are already also operating overseas in terms of how they're doing it and what is the 5G applications that they are actually putting into place. So our officer is Muhammad Amir Shafiq Abdul Halim. DI8 is a study on Malaysian digital signatures. So we have digital signatures which are deployed by 4 different certification authorities. What can we do to make it better? Can we actually have the digital signatures all operating on all the different platforms? For example, if provider certification authority A provides it, can it be used on the platform of provider 2 and 3 and so forth? So these are the things that this research is going to look at. And the officer is Cik Norizan Abdul Rahman. And the last, for me, the last slide is actually looking at digital healthcare amongst our seniors. So the officer is Puan Technologist Grace Gaines Hui Chin. So this is also interesting in terms of where should we be going, or what are we doing, or where are we, what is the state of the art in terms of digital healthcare amongst the seniors. So again, I'm done. I'm passing over to my colleague, Bawani. Thank you so much.
Hi. Okay. Hello. All right. Thank you so much, Zach, for the presentation. Can you all hear me? Yeah. Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you once again for spending time and attending today's DSRG information session. I hope Zach's presentation clearly explained the research requirements for the DSRG 2023 Cycle 1. For any further information or clarification, please do contact us. Now I will provide explanation on the administrative process. As you can see, this flow chart shows the DSRG process overview and the critical timeline that must be observed. So for this cycle, the call for proposal was open on 1st of March, and it will be open until 31st of March, 5 p.m. After closing the call for proposal, we will start the evaluation process, which I will explain later. This evaluation process will begin from the first week of April until the second week of May. Once the process is completed, the successful researchers will be notified during the 3rd week of May, and this is followed by the execution of the LOA at the end of the May. So the project for these cycles are expected to commence during the first week of June. Please note that all these are tentative timelines here and may be affected by the public holidays in April, and interested participants can visit the following links and download the listed documents necessary for further understanding and proposal submission. Next slide, please. All right. To register your interest, first, please visit the call for proposal page on the MCMC website and download the DSRG 2023 application guideline and research grant system applicant user manual. All right. Please note that the interested participants may submit their proposal via research grant system from this cycle onwards. Later, my colleague Hidayat will explain the application process here. On the other hand, interested participants are encouraged to read through and understand the DSRG guideline and the user manual before drafting and submitting the proposal. This is to ensure that the proposals align with the cycle's research project requirements. Potential researchers will be evaluated when you submit the proposal. The CV of all research team members, certified copy of highest academic qualification, and other relevant materials to support the proposal through the research grant system by the deadline. Please note that we will not accept any submission received after 31st of March 2023, 5 p.m. Next slide, please. All right, we have come to the evaluation process. So we begin the opening of the call for proposals, which will run for 1 month. After the closing, the Secretariat will filter and review all the submitted proposals based on the research requirement criteria. If the researchers are shortlisted, they will be invited for a pitching session with the DSRG technical panel of experienced academicians and industry experts. If not, we will notify them accordingly. So after the pitching session here, the successful researchers who are considered for the award will be notified via email, followed by the execution of the LOA. And for the unsuccessful one, we will notify you as well. So next slide, please. All right. On top of the requirement listed in the DSRG guideline, the following are the additional criteria that we will consider upon reviewing and selecting the proposal during the screening session. The researcher must demonstrate a sound understanding of MCMC's role and functions. The researcher's experience and expertise are demonstrated through prior research work and publication in the proposed field. The proposed research provides new insights, value, or knowledge on the existing body of research. The feasibility of the research scope must be commensurate with the grant amount and duration. The proposal must address the outlined research problem and exclude the development of prototypes or applications. The proposals must must meet submission and evaluation criteria. And finally, the proposal must be written in an understandable, concise, and straightforward manner. Next slide, please. All right. Once the screening session is completed, the shortlisted researchers will be invited for a pitching session, and the technical panelists will consider the following criteria to select finalists for the award. First is quality. The proposed research must be rational and presented coherently and logically. The proposed research must also fall within the research focus area and consider all ethical considerations. The second is impact. The proposed research must contribute to MCMC's policies and initiatives and offer new insights into the subject area. The third is alignment. The proposed research must align with beneficiary departments' specific works and potentially be useful for building the knowledge base. The fourth is suitability. A researcher with the right expertise, skills, and knowledge who can propose a suitable methodology to accomplish the research objectives is another qualifying criteria that we will consider. And finally, feasibility. The proposed research must be feasible and completed within the stated timeframe, which is 6 months, or stated otherwise. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm passing over to my colleague Hidayat to explain the application process through the research grant system. Over to you, Hidayat, and thank you again, everyone, for your patience and presence.
All right, thank you, Bhavani, and hold on, let me join audio. Okay, sorry. Thank you, Bhavani and Zachary, for the explanation. So allow me a few seconds for me to switch the screen, because I'm gonna need the cursor to actually go through the next part of this presentation. Okay, let me switch it to full screen. All right, let me check the view. Okay, so yeah, I have the cursor with me as well. All right, so everyone, thank you again for coming in today. So I believe my colleagues Zachary and Bhavani has already explained to you on the gist of the DSRG, basically the research requirement, the general timeline process, and also the selection process. So here comes a new part which we exclusively have for today, which is on how you can actually apply via the system, because some of you may have already be familiar with the DSRG application process, but this year we are, becoming more digitalized, and for that purpose, we are now making the application process via our very new system, which is only implemented recently and taking place for this particular cycle. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just gonna go through the user guideline, the applicant user manual, which is already inside the MCMC website as well. So I'm just gonna go through this, and then if you have further question, always keep the question coming. You can put it in the Q&A box, as my colleagues here will be answering your question along the way, or we will keep the question towards the end if it's a more complicated question that we need to address. Right, so the next slide here, this is just the content. This is exactly the same view that you will have if you download the the user manual, which I believe my colleague Atika will be sharing or has already shared inside the chat box. So do check it out, and maybe you can go through it along with me. So the first part in this is obviously the sign up process for new users. So this is the very first time that this system is being used for application by the public. So obviously you need to sign up first. If you have already done that, kudos to you, because you haven't, I don't need to go through this. Some of you have already experimented. Thank you for that. But here is for the rest that haven't yet done that. Okay, so what you can do is that you first need to go to the login page. So it's very easy to go to the login page. The link is available in our MCMC website, or you can also access the link via this particular user manual. So what you need to do is you just go to the login page and then create a new account here. So after that, after you click the new account, you'll be directed to this particular page where you will need to fill your name, email, and contact numbers. So what I would recommend is that basically it's easier for us to track who you are if you already use your full name in this registration part, right? So the email which we recommend for you to use is your university email, because then it will record formally in our system that you are from this particular university. And then just put your contact number. And you have to tick I agree to privacy policy and terms. So obviously, the standard process is that you click this first, you just read through, and then you tick it, yeah. Okay, so after that, click sign up, and you will receive an email actually. So this is the sample email that you will receive. So it will address you based on the name that you register inside the system. What you need to do next is click verify email address. But again, I think I just want to bring out that the system that we have currently are suitable for desktop applications. So by desktop, I mean like you can use your PC, you can use your laptop or any other normal browsers, but not via your mobile phone, because this is just the first process of our testing out the system. So we are not able to make it very mobile friendly yet at the moment. So we apologize for the inconvenience. But along the way, we will definitely try to improve it. But for this particular session, I believe in this cycle and that cycle, we would highly encourage you to use your desktop when you're applying for the system. All right, so back to the flow. After you click the verify email address, you will need to set your password. So key in your new password and confirmation password. So anything is fine, but make sure that you have to click. You have to put your password in, new password and confirmation password. But make sure you jot that down somewhere, because then you will have to use the same credentials when you are logging in the system after after you close your browser. You want to log in again, you need to use the same credentials. But of course, we do have the forgot password function as normal, so that would help as well. But if you jot it down, note it down somewhere of your password, that would be really great. And then click verify email address down here. And then here is the next process after you've done that, right? So it will direct you to actually log in. So this is also the same thing like if you are trying to log in the future next time, because once you register your account, it will always be there, unless if you decide to delete it by sending us an email. But if not, it should be there in the system recorded as it is. Right, so what you need to do is that you put your registered email and also your password. Remember me is obviously an optional process for you. If you want the browser to remember your password for you to log in easier, then that's up to you. But if not, then that's fine. Okay, so after that, after you put your credentials, click login. And here is a compulsory step for first-time users. So you will be directed to this after you log in for the first time, which basically you need to update your profile. So salutation here, full name as passport, nationality, passport number, contact number. So basically passport number here is if you're a Malaysian citizen, put your IC. If you are non-Malaysian, just put your passport number. Okay. So here is an optional process whenever you want to update your profile, right? So let's say this particular situation is usually like if you are trying to apply in the next cycle, right? But you are currently engaged with a new university, right? So you are not from the university that you applied in the previous cycle. You wanted to update that, sure. You can just go here in my profile, and then you can just update your information. Okay, and then after that, you just click save. Okay, here's the very important part of how you can apply. How you want to apply is basically in your dashboard, go to my application on this left menu. And then after that, it will direct you to this page. So you can see it blank here because I'm trying to implicate the first-time users which do not have any application yet. But let's say if you are logging in in the next cycle, right? You have applied for this cycle. Your your application history will be viewable here, right? But if you wanted to apply for this particular cycle, just click new application on this page here. And then you will be directed to this particular page where it is compulsory for you to fill all 10 sections. So if you're familiar with the DSRG process, it's actually just the same thing, but we are integrating it inside the system currently. So it's actually just the same thing, the same information that we are requesting previously, albeit manually last time. Right, so here the first page is actually the grant preference. There's another page for this, so let me just skip ahead. All right, so in the first part, the grant preference, you just basically choose the current cycle, current grant that you are trying to apply for. So as you can see here, we are actually trying to make the current cycle on the top left in the system currently, and there's also enhancement process where we are trying to delete the older cycles which are not available. But currently, based on the capacity of the system, I think it is located on the right bottom. Yeah, on the right bottom. So basically, you just find this particular cycle, the digital study subscribe 2023 cycle 1. Right, so you just find this here. Okay, so one thing that I forgot to mention earlier is that you can see all these 10 sections over here. You do not need to complete them sequentially. Yeah, so meaning to say, like, you can actually just skip number 2 and then fill number 3 first. Right, so this actually allows you to just view what documents or information are required from you. So that's basically what I would suggest. Once you enter here, just browse through the information that requested, and then you can just do it page by page. All right, so an important note is that whenever you fill in each page, or at least even partial information in each page, click save, because if you don't click save, it's not actually automatically recorded. So when it's more like a manual process, basically, like whenever you type something, just click save if you want it to be saved. All right, so and then what you need to do after you click save is just click next to go to the next section. Okay, so based on the flow, right now I'm going to part 2. So part 2 is requesting for your profile details, further profile details. So this, if you remember, this will be taken from your profile details, the one that you fill in your My Profile, and then you just need to fill in the rest of the information. So asterisk marks a compulsory field that you have to fill in. If there's no asterisk, meaning to say you can actually skip that part. Right, so this is just a very simple part, I believe, so I can actually just skip to the next one. Team member details, also the same. I think we received one question on, I've addressed the question on maximum number of team members. There's no maximum number of team members. That's really up to you. In terms of minimum number of members, the requirement for DSRG is that you need to have 1 lead researcher and 1 research member. So meaning to say, to answer that question, you need to have at least 1 team member. All right, but if you have more, click add new members and then just fill in the same information for each particular researcher. Okay, so hope that answers the question. And then moving on to the next part, which is the project details. So project details are the team and focus area is a drop-down menu. So just follow the guideline or the research title so you know which focus area and team they belong to. In terms of project title, currently that you can see is mainly a proposed project title that the research sponsor has recommended. But if you wanted to change them slightly, as long as the research objective are aligned with the project title, so it is fine. You can actually just use a different project title aside from the one that we have put inside the guideline and also inside the MCMC webpage. Okay, ethical consideration if your university requires something of a clearance, right? So if you need that, just click yes. Just type yes and then explain what it is. If no, then you don't even have to fill this. Or if you wanted to fill, just click not available or no requirement needed. Okay, and the next part is this is compulsory. You need to click yes or no, access to support and resources. If you click yes, you need to elaborate what kind of support and resources you need. All right. So the next part, research proposal. This is the same thing. If you remember last time we sent you a manual document for those that have applied before. It's the same thing, but then now it's in the system. So you just have to fill everything in. So there's actually 10 sections here. including the keywords, but keywords are fairly simple. But for the other parts, we have a maximum words of 500 words. So again, if you remember, Bawani just now mentioned that you need to be concise, right? So that's actually what we're seeking for. Be concise, go straight to the point, just really what you wanted to do to us on each particular session, okay? And then the next part, which is the budget part. A kind reminder that the budget is capped to a maximum of 10,000 ringgit for this particular cycle. So how you wanted to distribute that is really up to you, but I just wanted to remind you that there's two heads of expenditures that are capped in it by its own. So the two heads of expenditure will be conference. So conference is actually capped to a maximum of 1,000 ringgit or a maximum of 10% of your budget. So let's say if the total of your budget is only 9,900 ringgit, so the caps of your conference is not 1,000 ringgit, it should be 990 ringgit. So that's really how it works. And the other heads of expenditure that is capped is in terms of publications, which is capped to a maximum of RM 2,000 ringgit. So the rest you can actually just distribute. What you need to fill in the details is actually if there's a breakdown of this. So for example, remuneration and allowance, right? So if you are paying your enumerators, right, for focus group discussion, for your survey, so just branch that out. So for example, focus group discussion can be 250, and then for survey dissemination is 250. So the total for this part will be 500. So it's just a brief, simple one, as you can see in the blue box over here. So don't overcomplicate things. Just put it as briefly as you can. Okay, and then next part. Okay, so the Gantt chart is mainly in terms of you showing your proposed timeline. So what I mean by a proposed timeline is for, let's say, when do you fathom your research will start, and then when is the duration for your survey destination, when is the duration of your FGD. So anything that you can think of, just put it here. And how you can do that is that by clicking add task, and then you will be directed to this, not directed, this pop-up will appear where you can actually add your Gantt chart. So put the name, for example, just now I take survey dissemination period, right? One of the example. So from when until when? Okay, so for instance, if it's an FGD which takes place in one day, right? You can just put it on the same day. So 20th January, for example, until 20th January. But usually, like how you formulate research is that you don't have a specific date yet for FGD. So it's usually a duration, although it's a one day, it's going to take a 1 day period. So usually you just put that particular week, right? So for example, 1 January until 7th of January, so something like that. And then choose your task color. So we hope you can actually use a different task color. So there's a lot of different colors that you can choose from. So that's really up to your creativity. But just choose different colors for each particular task, okay? All right, and then as always, click save, and then you can click next. Okay, so here, the proposal form. The proposal form is actually, if here you just click the PDF first, and then I'm just going to show you what you're going to view. So you can, once you click the PDF, you will be able to view your PDF proposal submission form, which will recap any information that you have put previously. So what you need to do now is that obviously just check through, does the information align with what you have submitted, what you have typed throughout the thing, because maybe if you forgot to, you made some amendments in some pages, you forgot to click save. So then here you can actually just check it back like, oh, sorry, I forgot to update it. So something like that. So make sure it's aligned with your updated content. Okay, and then you click download over here. It will be downloaded to your desktop. And then if you just scroll down, find the last page. This is actually the view of your last page. So what you need to do here is that for this section, you need to just sign and put your relevant details. But for the next part is actually for you to get verification for your research management office. So research management office is something like your research center. So you may use a different term for it, right? So for, I think mostly they use the term research management center, RMC, but for some it can be just research center or research management. So just find your relevant authority there based on your university, and then get them to sign this and verify this proposal. Okay, and then you will be directed here again, then just click next. Okay, so in this part, you will need to upload the relevant files. So if you can see item 3, this is where you upload the Research Management Center verified report. So after you get their sign, this is where you upload it. Okay, and then the other items, there are 4 other items, which are the lead researcher curriculum vitae or resume, and then the lead researcher highest academic certificate. So highest academic certificate is basically you need to get that verified. So obviously for the lead researcher, the highest certificate will be at least the PhD or doctorate, right? So you need to get that certified from any authorized personnel. Right, but commonly, I think the easier way for you is that you can just get your head of department or your faculty's dean or your registrar or even your research management office director, deputy director, or any other relevant authorities to actually sign that. So it's easier for you to get it from your universities rather than you go outside from other relevant authorities. But in that particular case, we do accept it. So it really depends on you, as long as the person is authorized to verify the document. Okay, so so aside from your CV and your own certificate, you will also need to provide your team members CV and also their highest academic certificate. So their highest academic certificate meaning to say, like, if one of your team member has a master degree, right? So what you need to do is to get that master degree only to be verified. So you don't need to put their bachelor's degree or anything else, just put their highest one. So if let's say their highest one is also doctorate, so just provide that to us. Okay, and then the last part, declaration boxes. You just need to click this, click, obviously read it and then click it. And then after that, this is the final process where you need to click submit. But what I would recommend is that before you clicking submit, just read through your application again to ensure that the data that you input are the most updated one. Because once you click submit, it will actually be recorded, right, inside the system, and then you can no longer amend the application. So please be wary of that. Okay, so this is a process where you can view back your application that is successfully submitted. So if you are directed here, congratulations, meaning to say your application is successfully recorded by the system. And then we will take the time from the timeline that Bawani presented to actually review your applications. Okay, so you can click it by clicking this view icon. So it's also in the My Application thing, right? So after you've done this, you can actually no longer apply for a new application. But of course, because the application is made by the lead researcher, right? So meaning to say, if you wanted to become a team member for a different research by a different lead researcher, then the ones that will need to upload this, the one that need to apply for this will be the different lead researcher and not yourself. Okay, so which is why you only can apply once per cycle. Okay, so that's actually the main process. Here is another process if, let's say, your documents are missing, right? So all your documents are not verified because you attached the wrong file and everything. So proposal amendment, what you will have to do is that if you receive this email, so if you don't receive an email, meaning your application is good to go. But if you ever receive this email, it's also be notified inside the system that the secretariat has requested for a particular change. So the instruction for the change will be somewhere here. Okay, so make necessary changes, section A, section B. It will be more detailed actually, depending on the parts that you are missing. Okay, so once you click, you've done this, log into the system using the login page. And then here in the same My Application thing, you will actually view an additional icon, which is the update icon. So click the update icon and then make amendments to the relevant parts. And then just you will need to repeat the final step, which is to tick, and then click submit. A reminder that you please only make changes to the part that has been indicated by the secretariat, because we will keep track of the changes that you want, right? So so meaning to say, like, do not update other parts, only the parts that were requested, and then after that click submit. Okay, log out, obviously, I think we're nearing to the end. Log out is very easy. Throughout the way in your dashboard, you can always see your profile icon over here. What you need to do is just click the profile icon and then click log out. Okay, so important thing is if you do not click log out, sometimes the browser, right? You open the browser, you just close the window, you don't close the browser, and then you go to other pages. And then if you click back the thing, it will still remember that you are logged in. So this is the importance of logging out if you, especially if you are using different devices that is not yours, right? Okay, that will be all from me in terms of the guideline. Sorry, in terms of the user manual. So here is our contact information. So if you have any questions pertaining to the system, just contact us at research.enterprise@mcmc.gov.my. Alternatively, you may also contact the numbers here. 7968 is my number, and the rest are my colleagues. So please feel free to contact any number they can. Okay, I think maybe we have some question, but let me stop share now, and then my colleague Atika will share screen the previous slides because there are some other closing items that we wanted to do. All right, so now is the Q&A session. Let me see. Okay, there are 4 questions left unanswered. Hi, would the recording be available on the website? Yes, it will be. So the recording and the slides will be uploaded in our website in 2 to 3 working days. So it's actually the same page as you would already know of, which is the CFP page in the MCMC website. So you can find the recording of this session here. Okay, so the next question. Okay, I'm going to skip first Vitoko question because I think if there is a sponsor is there, we will invite them later on. But let's answer the more administration question. If I would like to also approach another organization for a joint fund with this grant, will this be possible? If yes, what should I look for? Yes, you may, but it's basically like you will need to after we granted you this particular grant, let's say you are selected to go through the technical panel, then you are granted this grant, you can look for a joint fund, but that is not something that we will schedule for you. So that is something that you will have to find on your own, right? But a restriction for this is that if you are, let's say you are already awarded another grant, so let's say grant from outside, then you are applying to our grant to co-join the research, then that is something that is not allowable. Okay, hope that answers the question. Do we have to present the proposal and findings?
Yes.
Sorry, this is only applicable if you are selected or chosen. So let's say if you are not, your research is not selected to go through the technical panel session, then unfortunately, no, you don't need to present the proposal and findings. But if you are invited, then that's something that you will have to do. And later on, after being awarded, obviously, you will have to present your findings in some different session or programs. Okay, but at this instance, you have to just wait for your result first and to see if you are invited to present or not. Can I have the recording for this webinar? Okay, Puan Zaleha, Dr. Zaleha, basically the slides and recording will be available in our MCMC website in 2 to 3 working days. So you may download it from there. Okay, so I think DCC3, maybe if I can invite Zach or to liaise with the research sponsor. Okay, so I believe the research sponsor is Muhammad Amir Shafiq Abdul Halim is typing an answer. So maybe we'll wait until the answer is typed. While that, I'll try to answer some other question. What is the previous average acceptance rate for the grant proposal? Okay, so this question, average acceptance rate. Okay, so sorry, I'm a bit confused with that
Maybe
question.
I could answer that. Okay. There is no average acceptance rate. It's actually based on submission and also after we have done the screening process here, sometimes we receive submission for certain topics, and then that may be not in line. Therefore, we have to dismiss all the received proposals. So there is no average. As long as it's in line with the requirement of the research proposal, then we will accept it. I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
Okay, so I hope that answers the question. Thank you, Bawani. Okay, if the lead researcher contract ends in early November 2023, is it still possible to apply for this grant? Unfortunately, no, because as we are expecting to start the project in June, so you will at least need to have 9 months to actually continue this research, because we need to close off all the administration matters. So 9 months from June will be around March next year. So if your contract ends in November this year, unfortunately, you don't have enough time to fulfill the requirement. Okay. Question from Kota Muhammad Daud. The scope of the research mostly related to East Coast and Sarawak. Is it possible for other part of Malaysia, such as Sabah? Okay, so I think you are referring to some of the requirement just now, right? So I think Zachary has already mentioned that some of the research has already been conducted in Sabah, which is why the focus is now on the peninsula and also in Sarawak. So unfortunately, if you are referring to those parts, then you will not be able to emphasize that. But for the other general research, let's say for the ones that cover the whole Malaysia, then yes, include Sabah as well as part of the Malaysia respondents. Can the proposal be written in Bahasa Melayu? Yes, definitely, Dr. Sri Rahayu. You can submit your proposal in M or BI, but one requirement is that if you are selected and if you are awarded, the publications that you have to submit will have to be in both PM and also BI. So BI is the requirement that you need to do. Sorry, English. But as for throughout the research, if you are doing it in Bahasa Melayu, then that is fine with us. Okay, I think all the questions have been answered. Again, also do you have any time left? Okay, so we are actually just right on time. If you go to the next, okay, sure. Okay, so the next, this page is showing the QR code to fill in the feedback form. So if you know us, we will usually ask for you to fill in a very quick feedback form. It's just going to take around 1 to 2 minutes. So please, you can actually scan this, or the secretariat, let me check. Okay, Tika, my colleague, maybe you can also share the link inside the chat box so they can easily access it. Okay, so meanwhile, while you are doing that, I guess because we have some incoming questions, so we might as well answer it. So the first one is Bawani Sri is typing an answer. So I'll just answer the one by Tamina. Are there any specific criteria for selecting industry collaborator? This really depends on the research requirement itself. So I think what you can do is that you just go to the guideline, see which collaborator is suitable. You can actually propose that, but even while you are drafting your answer, what you can do is that you can actually just communicate back to us or the research sponsor, which their contacts are available in the guideline, for you to actually just ask again the kind of collaborator that you are looking for, or the kind of collaborator that you're proposing, are they suitable or not. So you may contact us directly for that. Okay, I think that should be all. This is our contact information. So the Research Enterprise Department is located in the MCMC Academy. So the picture here shows the tower, right? But we are located in different building. But this is our main tower, Tower 1 and also Tower 2. So just I would not recommend for you to come just to ask about the question, right? So just contact us via our telephone numbers here. And for DSRG related queries, meaning to say like content or anything else, you can email us at dsrg@mcmc.gov.my, or you can actually just communicate with the research sponsor, but appreciate you can also CC us in your email. But for system related queries, please send it to research.enterprise@mcmc.gov.my. As much as we can, we will try to answer any of your queries or questions. So I guess with that, there's no more further question. I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who comes here today. So I hope you have a pleasant journey applying all the applications. We look forward to hearing from you. Okay, to be honest, I've actually missed one very important part, which is to actually remind you to not submit at the last moment. Okay, because here again, we are trying out the system. So we not recommend for you to actually submit in the last hours because it may be crowded. But also at the same time, why you should not do this is because if you remember, one of the requirements is to actually get the your research management office verification, and then actually take a few days depending on your universities, right? So finish your proposal files, get them verified, and then submit to us as early as you can. So the earlier, the better. All right. So with that, thank you. We'll meet again sometime soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. We will leave this open in case you want to scan the feedback form or access the link for another minute. But if you've done that, thank you. You can actually just leave the meeting and we'll see you again soon.
The fallen leaves drift by my window. The autumn leaves of red and gold. I see your lips, the summer kisses, the sunburned hands I used to hold. Since you went away, the days grow